Here's where it gets really interesting. The ingredient I'm talking about is MCT oil, specifically a fraction called caprylic acid, or C8. MCT stands for medium-chain triglycerides. Unlike the long-chain fats found in olive oil, butter, meat, or nuts, which have 14 to 24 carbon atoms and require a complex digestive process to reach your bloodstream, MCT oil has shorter chains, 6 to 12 carbons, which changes everything. Instead of being packaged into chylomicrons and slowly absorbed through your lymphatic system, MCT oil is absorbed directly through the portal vein into your liver, where it's immediately converted into ketones, primarily a molecule called beta-hydroxybutyrate, BHB. Most people think ketones only appear during fasting or a strict ketogenic diet. That's not true. MCT oil produces ketones regardless of whether you've eaten carbohydrates or not. It's sometimes called an exogenous ketone source. These ketones are central to all 5 mechanisms that make this work so effectively. The first mechanism is direct fat oxidation. MCT oil accelerates fat burning faster than nearly any other intervention studied in clinical trials. Researchers at Boston University studied 49 adults over 16 weeks, comparing 18 to 24 grams of MCT oil per day to an equivalent caloric intake from olive oil. The MCT group lost 1.67 kilograms more body weight than the olive oil group, but the most impressive change was in visceral fat, the fat around organs. They showed a 2.9% greater reduction, specifically in visceral abdominal fat, the metabolically dangerous kind that drives inflammation, insulin resistance, and cancer risk. When measured with indirect calorimetry, the MCT group cells were oxidizing fat at a rate 29% higher than the olive oil group. Their metabolism shifted into fat-burning mode in a measurable, quantifiable way. This happens because BHB activates nuclear receptors called PPAR-alpha, which upregulate genes involved in beta-oxidation, the process that breaks down fat for energy. In other words, your cells get a molecular signal, use fat for fuel, and they do. The second mechanism is perhaps the most remarkable. It involves mitochondrial biogenesis and stem cell reactivation, 2 connected processes that have only recently been clarified. Between ages 20 and 70, you lose up to 50% of your mitochondrial density. For decades, the medical consensus was that this was inevitable, only modestly slowed by exercise. That thinking is changing. A study in PLOS ONE showed that MCT oil activates a protein called PGC1 alpha, known as the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis. After 4 weeks of MCT supplementation, participants had 37% higher expression of PGC1 alpha in muscle tissue and 28% more mitochondria per muscle cell. Their exercise capacity improved by 25%. Imagine each cell as a factory generating electricity. At 25, your factory had 100 generators running efficiently. By 65, you're down to 50, many struggling. MCT oil is like investing in new generators and repairing old ones. Within weeks, your cellular factory produces significantly more energy from the same raw materials. Now, the stem cell connection. BHB also directly influences stem cell behavior. Research from Harvard and the Salk Institute, published in Nature, shows that BHB regulates hematopoietic stem cell quiescence, keeping stem cells in a protected, undamaged, resting state until they're needed. Low BHB, common in people over 60 relying on glucose, causes stem cells to exit quiescence prematurely, exhausting them and reducing regenerative capacity. Elevated BHB from C8 MCT oil preserves stem cells, making them longer-lived and more effective at repairing tissue. This is confirmed in human studies using flow cytometry and single-cell RNA sequencing. BHB inhibits HDAC3, activating gene expression that maintains stem cell integrity and longevity. Simply adding MCT oil to your morning coffee is doing at a cellular level what almost no drug can achieve, protecting and reactivating the repair crew that keeps tissues healthy and prevents the accumulation of mutations that lead to cancer. The third mechanism ties directly to cancer metabolism. In 1931, Otto Warburg discovered that cancer cells consume glucose at 10 to 50 times the rate of normal cells, fermenting it into lactate even with plenty of oxygen, called the Warburg effect. This metabolic dependence isn't incidental. It's central to cancer survival. Cancer cells have dysfunctional mitochondria and can't efficiently use fat or ketones. When ketones rise from MCT oil and glucose availability drops, healthy cells adapt and thrive, while cancer cells are deprived of their fuel. This is sometimes called metabolic therapy. Studies in animal models show that ketone supplementation slows tumor growth and improves survival. The fourth mechanism is muscle preservation, which becomes crucial after 60. Losing muscle isn't just about strength or appearance, it impacts metabolism, immune function, and even cancer prognosis. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle, affects roughly 30% of people over 60 and 70% of those over 80. When muscle mass drops, your resting metabolic rate declines, and your immune system loses a critical amino acid reservoir used during illness. Research now confirms that muscle mass is a strong predictor of survival in cancer patients, independent of cancer type or stage. Normally, when someone enters a calorie deficit to lose fat, the body breaks down muscle along with fat. About 25% of the weight lost is muscle, and 75% is fat. You may get lighter, but you also get weaker, slowing metabolism further. MCT oil shifts this balance in two key ways. First, the BHB it produces is anti-catabolic. When ketone levels rise, your body interprets it as an energy-sufficient state, meaning it doesn't need to break down muscle for glucose. Branched-chain amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine, which would otherwise be converted into glucose, are spared. Second, ketones activate mTOR signaling through an insulin-independent pathway. mTOR is the master regulator of muscle protein synthesis. Normally, insulin is required to stimulate mTOR, but it also triggers fat storage. Ketones bypass the insulin requirement, giving you the muscle-building signal without promoting fat accumulation. The clinical evidence comes from a 2019 study by Nosaka and colleagues in nutrition and metabolism. They studied 40 adults aged 55 to 75 with mild sarcopenia. Both groups followed identical calorie deficits and exercise routines. The only difference was that the intervention group consumed 14 grams of MCT oil daily. After 12 weeks, the MCT group lost 3.2 kilograms of fat, while gaining 0.8 kilograms of lean muscle. The control group lost 2.1 kilograms of fat, but also half a kilogram of muscle. DEXA scans and muscle biopsies confirmed a 15% increase in muscle protein synthesis in the MCT group. Gaining muscle while losing fat is considered nearly impossible in adults over 50, but MCT oil makes it achievable. The fifth and final mechanism is the synergy with caffeine, which explains why combining MCT oil with coffee is more effective than either alone. Caffeine independently increases fat oxidation by roughly 29%. It works by inhibiting phosphodiesterase, which raises cyclic AMP inside fat cells, activating hormone-sensitive lipase. This releases stored fat from adipocytes into the bloodstream. The problem is that released fat must be immediately used as fuel. Otherwise, it recirculates and is repackaged into fat cells. MCT oil creates that demand. Ketones are a preferred fuel, and when combined with the fat mobilization triggered by caffeine, the body efficiently burns the released fat. Studies show that caffeine alone raises fat oxidation by 29%, MCT oil alone by about 25%, but combined, the effect jumps to 51%, a multiplicative effect, not just additive. One mechanism releases fat, the other creates the incinerator to burn it. Timing is critical. Consuming MCT coffee first thing in the morning, while fasting naturally from sleep, maximizes all five mechanisms. Insulin is at its lowest. Glucose doesn't compete with ketones. Fat oxidation pathways are primed, and BHB levels, slightly elevated from overnight fasting, surge further with MCT oil. At this moment, your stem cells are most protected, your cancer metabolism environment is least hospitable, and your fat-burning pathways are at peak efficiency. Now let's cover how to implement this correctly because the details make the difference between success and minimal benefit. First, the type of MCT oil matters. Not all MCT oils are equal. C6, caproic acid, converts to ketones quickly but often causes digestive distress. C8, caprylic acid, is the gold standard fast ketone conversion and well tolerated. C10, capric acid, converts more slowly, but is also effective. Avoid C12, lauric acid, which behaves more like a long-chain fat and offers minimal ketone benefits. Most cheap MCT oils are predominantly C12. Look for pure C8 or a blend of C8 and C10. The second priority is dosing and ramp up. Start with 1 teaspoon, 5 milliliters, to 5 Ga in your coffee for 3 to 4 days. If tolerated, increase to 1 tablespoon, 15 milliliters, to 14 G, the clinical dose used in studies. Gradually increase to 1.5 tablespoons if digestion allows, but do not exceed 30 grams per day. Too fast a ramp can overwhelm liver processing and cause cramping, nausea, or loose stools. Most people who struggle with MCT oil start too high. The third priority is emulsification. Simply stirring MCT oil into coffee is ineffective. The oil floats, reducing absorption. Blend it with a high-speed blender, immersion blender, or milk frother for 15 to 20 seconds until creamy, like a latte. Optionally, add 1 teaspoon of grass-fed butter or ghee. This improves satiety, texture, and extends ketone production while supporting gut health. The fourth priority is timing. For maximum effectiveness, consume your MCT coffee within the first hour after waking, before eating anything. Ideally, delay your first meal by 2 to 4 hours. You don't have to force it. Most people find that the combination of caffeine, MCT oil, and optional butter produces sustained satiety and mental clarity, making it easy to postpone eating snacks and markers of inflammation decline. These changes aren't just cosmetic, they directly reduce the risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic disorders. Safety is excellent for most, but a few precautions are essential. If you have active liver disease, type 1 diabetes, or are on insulin, sulfonylureas, or warfarin, consult a physician before starting. MCT oil is processed in the liver, affects blood glucose, and can influence vitamin K absorption. Otherwise, for adults over 60, C8 MCT oil is one of the safest, most evidence-supported interventions for improving metabolic health, supporting cellular repair, and reducing visceral fat. Consistency is everything. These changes are not a quick fix. They are a lifestyle adjustment supported by clinical science. Over time, mitochondrial function improves, stem cells remain healthier, the metabolic environment becomes less favorable for cancer cells, and visceral fat decreases in a measurable, clinically validated way. The combination of MCT oil, fasting, resistance training, and proper nutrition leverages 5 distinct mechanisms that work together synergistically: fat oxidation, mitochondrial biogenesis, stem cell protection, metabolic modulation for cancer prevention, and muscle preservation. If you follow the protocol as outlined, 1 teaspoon of C8 MCT oil in your morning coffee, blended properly, taken in the fasted state, combined with a small calorie deficit, resistance training, and post-workout protein, you will see meaningful improvements within 8 weeks, with continued benefits over months. This is a powerful, science-backed strategy for anyone over 60 looking to regain energy, improve body composition, and optimize cellular health.